Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Confident Hypnotherapist Podcast. This week, I have one of my favorites from New Zealand. Let's face it, New Zealand has a lot of really great hypnotists. And I dare say that a lot of them are great hypnotists because of this lady. This week, I'm chatting to Justine Lette. Justine's from Rotorua with ThoughtWorks Hypnotherapy. She's also an international hypnotherapy trainer, mentor, and speaker, and director of Hypnosis New Zealand, one of the largest New Zealand training organizations. She's also the creator, we'll touch on this at some point, of the Golden Thread Protocol, which is all about releasing trauma. Justine, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it's good to have the flip over because I'm usually chatting with you. Hypnosis New Zealand, yeah.
I know. I should say to everyone that's watching this or listening to this that you run one of the most fantastic online networking groups with Hypnosis New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I know you have a lot of really fantastic speakers that come and willingly speak to your group, but they're such a lovely group of people.
Yeah, I think Kiwis are pretty cruisy and relaxed. And I found that generally most hypnotherapists are happy to come on and talk. It doesn't matter who you ask. People are quite happy to come and share and have a bit of fun.
I also think your group are always very engaging to talk to. And I think as a speaker, you're a speaker yourself. You know that when you're talking to a group and it just doesn't seem to be resonating or connecting, it can be hard work. Particularly online, where you can't get that. You can't hear the laugh if you make a funny comment or something.
Yeah, we seem to joke a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't tell many people this, but on my mother's side, I'm a French-German Maori mix. My great grandmother came from Christchurch, and so
that's pretty cool.
While I'm a bitzer, there's a percentage of me that has some New Zealand in me. So I do love my brothers and sisters over the dip.
New Zealand.
Yes.
Cool.
But I could never say kia ora properly. I always have my New Zealand friends say, that's not how you say it.
Yeah. I don't even know if I say it right. Kia ora, probably.
So thank you for joining me. And it's great to be able to chat with you. And, I'm curious. I always ask this as a starting question because I think it's fascinating to hear people's stories about how it is that they came to be a hypnotherapist. Was it something...
Yeah.
Is this your first?
Okay, so this is a really funny question for me because a lot of people tend to say that they got into hypnotherapy because they were having issues and they needed to see someone and they ended up going to hypnotherapists and had this profound, amazing experience. And so they wanted to be one. And at the moment, even in Rotorua, quite a few of the hypnotherapists here are my ex-students. My ex-clients, and they became students and now they're really good hypnotherapists. My story isn't like that at all. It's actually quite a funny one. And Lawrence, this is my personality. But anyway, basically from quite a young age, I worked for myself. So it was either I started teaching music when I was 16 or 17, different instruments, I've always kind of done that, and then massage, as you do, you go through all the kind of natural therapy things.
Mm-hmm.
I was always fascinated in past life regression, not so much through hypnotherapy or through experience, but more just studying it, and saying, these kids are coming through with these weird experiences, what's it all about? But I never really stumbled into using hypnosis until I read maybe Dolores Cannon or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think for some reason I was working with a counsellor, just a couple of sessions, and she did hypnotherapy. This would have been maybe 8 or 10 years before I even decided to do a hypnotherapist. And I went to this lady, and now that I understand what hypnosis is, well, as much as we could understand hypnosis, I mean, what really is it?
Talk about a debate topic,
Yeah. I went to see a lady, and anyway, I said, can you do that shit with me just for stopping eating chocolate, because I thought it was rubbish. And so she sat me on a couch and got me to close my eyes. You know how they say only 20% of people can really visualize?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm the other end, so I can't see anything. And even now I'm just learning, I'm starting to understand that it's something that you can actually learn. And so she took me through this thing, and at the end of it, I just opened my eye. Being analytical, I opened my eyes and just thought it was nothing. It was rubbish. That was my experience. But then I hopped in my car, and the next day I went to the supermarket to buy food, and I always got a block of chocolate, and I didn't. And then I didn't think anything of it. And then the next time I went to get chocolate, my mouth filled up with a brittle taste. And so my mind went back and thought, did she do that? Yeah. So it took a couple of years. But that was my very first experience of hypnosis, and never thought it about, it was just something that I thought was, that was interesting, and let it go. And then, so from there, like I said, I always liked working for myself. And there was, when I say my story is a little bit different to others, there was one night I was always interested in the spiritual stuff, like I said, the past life stuff, and I was interested in the mind a lot. So I had studied CBT and things like that, just on and off. But there was just one night I was sitting down and having a whiskey, and I stumbled across a certificate, an online certificate in hypnosis. And I signed up for it. I paid the money, and then the next day I sat there thinking, I wonder why I did that. And when I like to study. So when I do start to study, I get into something, and it just really clicked. But I don't have a magic story about how I kind of stumbled across it. It was more of a funny one. And I say to people, it's actually quite a random story.
I think that's great, because you are right. When I talk to people about their story, quite often there is their own personal challenges, or a tragedy or a trauma-inducing event that has led them to this healing. And I'm personally not like that either. I'm a bit like yourself, where I've always had just a fascination of the human mind. And, I often wondered sometimes, did my experiences, my own self-doubt at being a good hypnotist, come from the fact that I didn't have that
profound experience.
That profound experience that became the calling. So I think it's great to be able to normalize this, and to be able to have someone like yourself who is, very good at what you do, saying, well, no, I didn't have that either.
Yeah. And speaking of being like the conversation that we're having, I've been having a conversation lately with people around feeling like having that fraud feeling a little bit. And speaking in that with me, I know I am really good at what I do when it comes to hypnosis. It was something that came quite naturally, but as a subject and working on my own stuff, you probably couldn't get a worse person to deal with. And so even today I was working for someone with weight loss, and I just said to them straight up, and people listening to this are probably going to go, I should give her a session for self-esteem. But I just said straight up, I said, look, here I am talking about, stuff to do with weight loss, because most people come in to my clinic because they're holding weight, but more due to trauma than food and all that kind of stuff. But I just said to this dude, because it's a bit obvious that I need to work on myself. And I said, there's builders out there who don't finish their houses and things. So trust me, I'm 100%, I'm really good at what I do. I just don't tend to do it on myself. And he just started laughing. So, I mean, it doesn't matter how good you are. And, we all have things that go through our head. And for me, it's more the other way around. I trust in working on myself more than my ability with other people.
I think also because, what I'm hearing there, and what resonates with me, is the fact that I think for many new hypnotists, and even those that have been established for a while, we forget that we are not fixing people. We are not curing people.
Yeah, completely.
We are creating a space. We're walking with someone to help them on their own journey there.
Yeah, completely. And we're also on that journey ourselves.
Yeah.
And I don't think it ends.
Sometimes it might be down to the pre-talk or the setup or whatever it is that has them have that understanding of what their side of this deal is. But, I think we can often place a session that doesn't go right on our own lack of skill.
And it's got nothing to do with that.
Well, honest self-reflection is good, because it can lead
Oh,
to
yeah.
But at the same time, if they're not ready for that, then they're not ready for that. At least that's what my thoughts anyway.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And this is something that because after I teach a course, we have a lot, like I'm a Zoom person, so we have just lots and lots of Zooms, and it's not always a lot of teaching. It's more just a lot of chatting, gossip, catching up, and then if people do have things come up, we talk about what I would have done, and what they just that kind of mentoring type thing.
Yeah.
And one thing I always hear is just really the self-doubt, or change didn't happen, so what did I do wrong? And also another thing, I know that in the hypnosis profession, people are talking a lot about going to your clients at the end and getting people to write their experience and share it on Facebook and stuff. I don't kind of gel with that, because a lot of the people that I work with are coming, and I work with trauma. And if I'm, working with someone that's been through a really bad experience, I don't want to at the end go, hey, can you tell everyone about how I helped you with that rape or whatever? You know what I mean? It's not in my space. It's not. I don't think it's bad for anyone else to.
I'd say 30% of my clients lately are porn addiction.
Yeah, well, hey, can you just share with the whole world?
Do you mind just sharing with the world how I made you stop watching porn? It just isn't going to.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand getting those. What are they called when you get someone to write on? Anyway,
a testimonial. Getting
a testimonial is a good thing, especially when you're starting out. But with me, I say to my students, the best thing you can do at the end of a session, if you feel the need for feedback, is to actually sit back yourself, give yourself 15 minutes and critique yourself. Do you think I did a good job? And that might satisfy that little part in you that wants to reach out and say, hey, did it work? Because of course,
I agree.
we don't want to message a message to a client that will sound like we're testing ourselves, That
self-reflection aspect of it, I think everyone should do regardless of where they're at.
Yeah.
Because, if you're able to sit back and give some honest self-critique without adding in the I'm good or I'm bad at this, and just say, well, that could have been better, this could have been better. At least it gives you a roadmap forward as to where you could continue your professional development.
Yeah, completely.
Particularly since we're in a culture where it seems like everyone jumps on every course available, hoping it's a magic bullet that will.
Yeah. That's a part of our industry a little bit.
Isn't it? I've got so many courses I've never watched.
Me too. And so many certificates.
Yeah. And it's like, for crying out loud, that's not useful. I should sit.
Yeah. I will say something though. With my brain, and because it's the ADD brain, basically, there needs to be a lot of stimulation going on. And I see it in a lot of other hypnotherapists that I think it's a good brain type. I'm not putting anyone in a box. But I think in our profession with hypnotherapy, the thing that got me to stick at it was the idea of me, working a 9 to 5, it's not going to happen. There's no way someone's going to tell me that I have to be at a place at a certain time. That's not my personality. So I've always worked for myself. But, when you do something, so say with my music, I got to a point where there was no more challenge in it. You cannot ever learn everything about the brain. You just can't. And when you're working with clients, I had an experience. I'm not going to share the experience because it's really way out there. If anyone wants to hear some weird stories, they can message me. But I have these experiences after doing it for years that blow my brain. And I have to sit back at the end and think, what the hell was that? What's going on in the brain at that time? Is this a spiritual thing? Is it not a spiritual thing? What could be happening? Is it, you know what I mean? And I'm always questioning, and you just can't learn it all. And I don't think we ever can, because when we seem to hit an idea of what something is, even hypnosis, boom, something else comes out that throws that away, and our knowledge is just expanding all the time. So it keeps the people that do like to obsessively learn or like to keep their mind going, there's just so much to learn that you're never going to
cover every.
You're never going to cover it. And when you do think you have, you haven't. Yeah.
You've kind of touched on this, and I kind of know the answer, but I would love to explore a bit more. How much does spirituality impact on the work that you do? Because, spirituality is a topic that we have come up occasionally in this podcast. And for me, I had my own spiritual kind of awareness happening in 2020, and it made me realize what role it does play in the work that I do.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear from someone like yourself, who I know can be quite spiritual.
Okay, yeah. So spirituality. The way I work is myself as a person away from hypnotherapy is spiritually minded, and I always have been. I'm quite open-minded to anything and everything, and I try to understand things. When I first started out, before I got into studying hypnotherapy, I went and caught up with a friend, Dawn, and had a really cool past life regression. That was probably 3 or 4 years prior to training, and that kind of sparked the interest as well. Where, like, the cool thing about hypnosis, and this is what I train my students, is when someone comes to see me and say I do like the Simpson protocol style, which is working with superconscious, or I do standard hypnosis, or I do the trauma stuff, which doesn't even have a trance, it's just slam, get in there and let's do some work. I found a way that, or we all can, that everything that we do with clients can be explained in a spiritual way, and it can be explained in a mind way. Yeah. So say if I have a client that suddenly slams into a past life regression, right? And it happens. This week I've had it once or twice, and that's not normal, and it happens spontaneously, it's not directed. Yeah. When people come out of it and they're like, what the hell was that? I'll kind of gauge where they're sitting, because I don't want to influence their belief system at all. So if they're like, that was cool, I've always wanted to experience a past life, if they speak in that talk, they're more talk past life. If they come out, I remember this lady that had it was not in her belief system. Even when she came out, she felt pain of being stabbed or something. She came out, she goes, I don't believe in that. I'm not even going to accept that. And I'm like, well, and you could explain, it's just the mind is going to create an imaginative picture to work on whatever you want to work on. It's your mind. Yep. And it's doing it in a beautiful way, like watching a movie. So the cool thing is with this stuff is, a lot of the work we do, we can tailor it to whoever's in the room. So when I'm working with, say, superconscious, if I'm speaking to someone that would understand the concept of a higher self or something, I'd kind of gauge it. They might come into the room and say, oh, I really like that book, if there's something there. Then I'll speak of superconscious as maybe a higher part of us, or it's almost like a higher self, something like that.
Higher self, yeah. Yeah.
And now if I'm speaking to someone that's more sciencey, and I think I got this from Ines, is when I talk about the superconscious, it's more like, we got the conscious mind, that's a chatterbox. We got the subconscious, that's our automatic pilot. And then we've got the bit in between that decides why it's going to do what it's going to do. If a person's put on weight for protection, it's the superconscious that decides, hey, we're going to put these programs in as a protective mechanism. Now that's probably not right, but for someone that doesn't have a concept at all, it's really easy for them to understand, okay, it's just the bit in between. So that if I did say superconscious, because it just comes out, then I'll have an idea, or I'll be able to explain it in a way that's not going to influence.
Yeah, that could be intellectualized for them, so they have an understanding. Because I think unless they don't have that understanding, there's going to be that part of them that perhaps rejects it because it's not fitting in.
Yeah, or just questions. And I do think, like I said, most of my students that come through tend to be really open-minded, and our conversations that we have in courses tend to go way away from what we're supposed to be talking about. It's quite hard to keep them, but it's really important that when we are doing a hypnosis session, that we don't influence or don't, especially when someone's in that space, our beliefs and our perception of reality and spirituality onto the client when they're in a vulnerable space. So if I had a feeling that, I won't really talk about it, but say I had a feeling that something was going on that was maybe outside, my feeling outside of real physical stuff.
Yep.
If I was to ask a question, I would be doing everything in my mind. I'd say like we do an SP super conscious, and I'd say nothing.
It's very Inez that she does that kind
of.
Yeah.
I would, and I really agree with that, because if I started using that kind of language, then I reckon that we're kind of putting our influence of our reality onto the client. But as for spirituality, it's freaking cool, and shit just happens. Like, you'll be in a clinic, I've had people whose eyes change color, and yet we can explain it with that does happen when you're dealing with people with, personalities coming through in a mental health. And so you can explain everything away in both directions, but it's pretty cool. Yeah.
And I guess I want to take a step back now also, because being a trainer, I imagine you've had people that make extremely good hypnotists immediately. But then there are those that you can recognize are in the makings of being great hypnotists, but it's almost like they're getting in their own way.
Yeah.
When you notice that, what advice do you give to those people, or how do you help them to be able to push through that part of them that seems to be standing in the way?
Yeah.
It's a case-by-case basis, of course. I should put it in that frame. Yeah.
So like what we were talking about earlier, I do find that people that have had an amazing experience with hypnosis, they're coming in with this belief in it.
Yeah.
And it's the belief in that it works. And it's that fire that I've got one lady in Rotorua, her fire, or actually two ladies in Rotorua, their passion is like, they're both lost weight. This has changed my life. It's going to change your life. It's freaking awesome. And they're taking that energy in with them. And they both have days, because they ring me and say, I'm having one of those days, where I'm lacking confidence. I don't know if I'm any good at this. But the minute they're with someone and they're sharing their story, they are just the hypnotist and they're beaming. So those people tend to have that such belief in the process that it happens quite easily. Then you've got the other people, that do come in, and I find the people that do struggle the most are the ones that that they're really they're themselves struggling to get that change, or they're having sessions and maybe things aren't changing, or before they understand what hypnosis is, and they have that idea when they first come in that they're going to get knocked out and do stuff. When they don't experience that straight away, they have to build the trust in the process a bit longer. So when I'm working with people like that, and when they're coming in, one thing that's massive, and we're with Hypnosis New Zealand, I'm really big on it, is knowledge is really good. Like, learning things is awesome. It doesn't make you a good hypnotist. What makes you a good hypnotist is bloody doing it.
Yeah.
And so when we do like a 5-day training, I just say to them, look, we can talk all day on Zoom or whatever, but in these 5 days, you're going to do as much hypnosis as we can. You're going to experience it. You're going to do it. And they do it on the first day, and they do it, and they do it. Then they start to notice that you get to a point when you do it so much that you realize that it doesn't matter what you do and what you say, it starts to happen naturally. And that's when the confidence kind of starts to come through. So for people that are struggling, I think it's more about just getting in and doing it.
Yeah.
And getting people to work with you as well. And even if it's just having experiences together is massive. When it comes to going out and starting a business and doing it, I was in a situation where I was doing the music teaching and stuff, and I think someone else on one of your podcasts said it the same way. I was a solo mum, and whatever I do had to work because I wasn't going to get a job. And so my motivation and push for it to work was freaking huge.
Yeah.
It was like it was a no-brainer. I wasn't gonna go there.
There's no other option. It had to.
There's no other option. And I remember the first session I had, my training that I had when I first started in New Zealand, it was good. It was a basic training. But in New Zealand at the time, and this has been my biggest thing with HNZ, is it was very closed. And as far as I knew, no one came to New Zealand and ran trainings. When I even suggested it, they were like, the person that I got it off said, if you ever bring someone to New Zealand, why would anyone want to learn from you? Okay. So there was like a bit of a fear base going on. So I hadn't, I'd had a very limited, even in regression, what I learned was not enough, I know, safely to go out and do it. So when I had my first client, it was real basic, one induction, a progressive muscle relaxation. It wasn't until I stumbled across Justine Lette and his like huge, massive thing of stuff that my eyes were open. I was already seeing clients doing just a progressive muscle relaxation. I had not really any idea of that magic stuff. That's how limited my my knowledge of even watching things was. But this person came in. I had the clinic looking good. They sat down, and I just looked at them and said, you're really lucky you're here because I'm the best in New Zealand. And I stared at them. Right inside, I was freaking dying. I was dying. But the one thing my tutor did say, and he was really good at this because he was a stage hypnotist. He didn't share those kind of inductions with us. But he said that, most of it is your confidence and your attitude. And from doing music, I'm really good at faking.
Being a performer.
Faking it. So I just faked it. And so I just started doing sessions with people. It was modern suggestive. So it was more just listening to what someone had to say, taking notes, doing a progressive and shoving them in the future and creating a little picture for them. And I actually think at the time it was me faking it that got the results. And then from then on it built up, and I did have to push. I think I was one of the first people also on Facebook because I went to a conference. I went to my first conference and I sat there, I didn't know anyone. And someone said up the front something along the lines of, someone in this room is using Facebook to advertise, and that's very unprofessional.
Wow.
And I was sliding down in my seat because
our attitudes change over time.
I know, but so I was quite lucky that I got to jump in on the New Zealand Facebook scene quite early. And so when I took over Hypnosis New Zealand, I was all about getting speakers on, getting speakers to New Zealand, getting Facebook going, getting New Zealand to recognise hypnotherapy and making it fun. Yeah. So, but I don't know who I heard this from. It's not mine. And so, because people say, how did you have the confidence to start? It's not having confidence, because that grows the more you do it. It's just having the balls to start.
It's funny.
You just got to do it.
Yeah, there is a joke in my title, in the sense that someone who's confident isn't sitting around thinking how confident they are.
Yeah.
Confidence is not something you aim for. Confidence is the outcome that you have once you've been doing it a while. And in fact, what you're saying about having the balls to start, to just get out there and do
just gotta do it,
is really the answer. Yeah.
And if you don't have the balls to start, you are in a profession where people can clear what you need to clear to have the balls. They can give you it. You can future pace to get some of that confidence going in your future. You can clear whatever's holding you back. So having the courage to even go to your mates that you trained with, or even to find someone and just say, hey, can you just do some work on me? Because there's obviously stuff that needs a bit of shifting to get in, to get in there and do it. But really the people that are successful are the people that just think, oh shit, I'm just going to do it. And when you do it for a while, and we were talking about this earlier, you start to realize that, there's time. If a client comes in and they're so ready to change, like they're ready, they're ready for it. They've been thinking about it for a while.
They've already started from the moment they walk in. Yeah.
And honestly, I reckon that you could sit there. I'd love to do a test. If they came in and just said, hey, and I'm we had a bit of a talk, close your eyes and not say anything and open the eyes, their mind's doing the healing. Well, I'm talking, we're creating this environment in this space. And I was looking into the research of how important holding space for the person is, the energy exchange. But at the end of the day, we're not in their head poking around. So the change is being done within them. And you get to a point where you could, like say with me in inductions, it doesn't happen anymore. It's just go into a feeling and off we go. And I know that takes time and confidence. But it's being in there and holding that space and understanding that, you could, the technique that you're working on them isn't necessarily what's creating a change. And people are looking for new techniques. It's you holding that space. It's your confidence. It's energy. It's their readiness to change. And I believe that we could, if we did a trial, that we could probably create change, just getting them in, closing their eyes and saying to the brain, you do whatever needs to be done. I'm sitting back.
The adjustments now. And, that's the thing, I always quote the wonderful Melissa Tier, who, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's on the line of, remember, all this shit is made up.
Exactly.
And, she's not saying that to be dismissive of techniques or anything like that. It is about the fact that we're making up a lot of the problems in our head anyway. We're going to have our mind do that. Let's use that same hardware and technology to make the change.
To sort it, And when you do, another thing that when I do techniques, I like to I like to strip them right back and work out what's going on.
What's going on?
And what I found out really early on, and this might not be right. I'm just going to turn off. I think something's clicking in the background.
Mm-hmm.
What I found out when you went back early on, and like I said, people might not agree, but it was only my observation, was that a lot of the techniques, when you pull them back, it tends to be someone comes into a room with a problem.
Yep.
We get the problem, we get it out of their body, we change it into something positive, we put it back in, and then they leave. And so you can break down all these really amazing techniques, nearly all of them, and put them back down to that simple kind of idea.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of can if you pull things right back.
It's a lot of disassociation, association,
all of that kind of stuff.
And
when you start to look in techniques, that's where you get into creating them. And like I said, it is amazing to study, and I think it is really good having all of those techniques in the background that you're going to flow through on. But the confidence comes when you end up having all of this idea and you just sit down with a client and things just happen. Stuff just comes out and you don't know where it comes from. It's being learnt somewhere. And then you just realize, hey, this is not actually about me that much. It's them in the space that we're creating. That's probably where spirituality comes in a little bit as well.
And what you're saying is actually a perfect segue to another question I wanted to ask you about, being, of course, about your golden thread protocol.
So it's the golden thread. It's, if people that know regression and root cause therapy and stuff like that, if you looked at the golden thread protocol, it's bits and pieces of lots of different techniques, as everything else is. When that kind of popped up, I was working with a lot of people that had experienced like sexual abuse and really harsh stuff. And the way I learned regression was going through scenes, getting the learnings, all of that kind of crap. And I had someone very personal to me that went through really bad trauma. And when I learned regression and doing it on things that weren't so traumatic, I saw the change. When you cleared that, it's intense, it's powerful, and when you experience it, it's really cool. But I saw that and I thought, there is no way I'm going to do that on that person, because they don't need to experience that again. And then when I studied things like heart math and all of those kind of different things where they say when you're in that space, you're actually in that moment, they're experiencing things at a, at a biological level. There's things happening in the body, and the idea of that for me, I just, it's just not going to happen. So I had to think, okay, how can we get the power of the root cause work that we do without having to have the experience of even looking at stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started playing with not so much, I just had a session one day and it just happened basically.
Yeah.
Because I had all these techniques in my head. Basically it's just a technique where you don't do an induction or anything. You just find where a implicit memory that's stored in your nervous system, not up in your brain, where it's stored in your body, you slam them back to the moment it was put there, and switch off. It's called an arousal. There's quite a bit to it, but basically we're just slamming someone back to the moment that personality was created, and we're switching that personality off. Wow. In a way that we can explain in a what you would call science way, mm-hmm. talking about, memory. There's memories that's stored up in our brain, there's memories that's stored within our nervous system. So it's just tackling those nervous system ones. And what I found that when you're working this way, I don't think I've ever actually come across. So if someone's been through abuse from 5 to 11, mm-hmm. we always tend to go right back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we always tend to miss all the yucky stuff. Mm-hmm. But when we switch off that personality, and then they were to talk about that stuff, there's just the emotion or the energy stored in the body is not there anymore. Yeah. So all the things that go along with it. So say I work with a kid that couldn't wear clothes. Actually couldn't wear clothes. So she was referred through mental health. She was brought to me, this little girl, and we slammed back the feeling that she had in the body, just went straight back from the feeling back to the moment. It went back to something really tiny, something silly, completed that arousal cycle thingy that we do, switched it off. She opened her eyes, the feeling was gone. She bought herself clothes on the way home. So that's a kid that hadn't been to school for 5 years. So we didn't have to deal with all of those years of stuff that happened in between. It just switched off the personality that didn't like the trigger of wearing clothes,
That sounds fat. And you know what, you've given just enough of a tease, and I reckon some people listening to this are thinking, we're going to need to explore this.
Yeah, and like I said, it's bits of, it's not, if you saw it, it's nothing new. It's just bits and pieces of something done in a different way.
I'm a firm believer that sometimes there are processes out there that overcomplicate things.
Yeah. This takes 5 minutes.
Yeah, that tend to really make it really challenging. And again, it comes down to sometimes the congruence with the process that's being done. What you're bringing to it, your intention, your belief, I think is just as powerful as.
Yeah.
Or the process can be the simplest process in the world, but if you believe that this is going to offer, a space that person.
Yeah, and with this protocol, it's not a I call it just a trauma transformation thing. It's not a session. It's something that you do when someone starts talking to you. Yep. They start crying, we slam it then and there, and then we keep on talking, and then we do all the hypnotherapy that you normally would do. It's something little. It's something little in between. And when we do get that memory, that implicit memory that's stored in the body, back up to where it's supposed to be and put in the past, they still know it's there, and they still need to process that stuff in a different way. We've just got it out of the nervous system back to where we can actually work with it. Yeah. So it's not anything that you go, oh, you're going to do this and everything's going to be amazing. It's just something that I do it with all my clients, and it's just something that I do as part of the just a technique. It's just another technique. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's all it is. Yeah.
If people want to reach out to you, Justine, just to perhaps explore what you offer, do you do trainings online as well as in person, or how do you do it at the moment?
Right now, everything's online because of our setup. Yeah. So pretty much all the trainings are online. People can hook up with me on Facebook.
Great. How can they find you on Facebook?
Just my name.
Yep.
And people can, like my Facebook is it's out there just for hypnotherapists and having fun. So people can just friend request me and message me.
So
or at Hypnosis
may not know the surname, but particularly if you're on listening to this in the audio and not seeing the video, surname is spelled Lette.
Yeah.
So they can find you that way. Justine, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome.
It's always great to catch up with you. You've always got such a wonderful energy about you. So I always enjoy that opportunity to chat.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
No problem. And to everyone listening, I hope you got something valuable out of the podcast today. We'll be back in a fortnight's time with another fabulous guest. But in the meantime, stay safe, take care, and be well. Hi everyone, Lawrence Akers here, and I'm here with the legendary Bob Burns. Thank you, Bob, for joining me.
Great to see you, Lawrence. Wonderful to be here. How are you? Okay.
I am doing well. Now, we have a training coming up on April the 2nd and April the 3rd, where you'll be showing everyone not just your swan, but talking about hypnosis and a few other things in general. Can you tell us a little bit about what people can expect if they come along to this 2-day training?
I'd love to, but you just told me we're doing this just a minute ago. I have no idea what to say in any way, shape, or form. But roughly, it'll be this stuff, will it? I can't get away with not doing this one, so they'll ask me to do something there. We'll try and do, we won't try, we'll definitely do demonstrations. We'll do them live. You've seen me work before, Lawrence. I take a hell of a risk. I pull somebody out and I have no idea who I'm talking to, but every now and again, we get some wonderful demonstrations where we go certain places. But for anybody who's watching this, no one ever gets embarrassed. I believe it's going into an area where secrets are about to be divulged. Stop. I'm quite boring areas like that. So we'll be doing that. We'll be talking about the presentation that I use to do my standard consultation. We'll go into lots of other areas about how I get business. How I get business when I'm just walking down the street. Not walking down the street as such, but we're going in to get a coffee or like there's a joke in my family that when I'm out with my wife somewhere and I'm fed up watching her getting shoes or getting bags, she'll say, why don't you go and make a couple of appointments? And what she means is, why don't you go and get a cup of coffee or a beer, whatever you do, because I always come back and say, oh, I've got this appointment on Tuesday with this guy. So, but there's a skill in doing that, you know, because as you know, my family motto, ancient Latin, 2,000 years old now, it's Snicarios estas bestas, which means sneaky is best. So I'll show the people how to be really, really sneaky and how to make appointments. How about that? People think you're just saying hello, but no, you're making appointments, you're breaking into the back pocket, you're taking money out. It's too far. Oh, sorry, it's too far. I'm not doing that. We're making appointments. Yeah. I'll show the people how to do that. Also other things, challenges, maybe when we're at one of these wine and cheese parties and people come up to you and say, so you're the hypnotist, are you? A dread for lots of newbies. But for people like me, oh, it's like winning the lottery. Yeah, I try and just catch them and reel them in. That's just lovely. It becomes their worst nightmare. But, you know, we're gentle with them. So I can show people how to handle. Here's the deal there, Lawrence. We should be able to handle every given situation. We should be able to have a rebuttal or anything that anybody ever says to us. And if we don't, then we're not trained as much as we should be. So I can handle anything, for example, in life, except only one thing. And I've said this for many, many years. I mean, my background is in sales. I guess to this day, apart from my hypnotherapy skills and what have you, I'm really a salesman. I sell them, or I sell the part inside them. Stop doing what they're doing, or start doing what they should be doing. But there's only one thing a salesman can handle, and that's no. Try it sometime. Next time the guy gives you a hard time at the parking lot, the cars or the whatever, just say no, and just watch them look up the little book. Page 34, page 1. No, we don't have a no. So apart from that, seriously, we should be able to handle everything in a wonderful way that they can smile and go, wow, that's a great answer. We'll be delving into stuff like that, and we'll see where we go from there. And we'll be doing new stuff we never did the last time.
Oh,
for example, I get a lot of guys asking me about imposter syndrome. It's become one of my favourites now. I like to talk about imposter syndrome, but I don't want to say anything about it. But I promise you, your guys will have a good laugh about this, and it'll be something they can use for the rest of their career. You have my word on that. Is that okay?
Well, that's one of the trademarks, I think, from the last training, is that the feedback we got was that everyone not only learned far more than what they were anticipating, but I think that one of the common comments was they haven't laughed so much and been so thoroughly entertained in a training before either. I've described it as a training and a show because it's just that brilliant.
I know, but in all fairness to anybody watching this for the first time, I did begin the morning naked with a daffodil up my butt. So come on, that's funny, Lawrence. Yeah, it's funny, man.
And
That's it.
I have to say, since doing your training, I think I use the Swan in almost every single session that I do with people. And not only that, if you're looking for something that's going to give you confidence, the way you explain how to approach this, it's almost a no-fail approach in so many ways. So my confidence level's gone up through the roof in using this as well. So these are just several reasons why anyone who's new to the industry could benefit from this. But people who've been doing this for ages also seem to really get so much out of this as well.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea is we're going to fail. I failed today, admittedly, around about 4 o'clock this afternoon. But they never knew I failed. That's where the skill comes into it. Yeah? So they never knew I failed. In fact, I made it look as if it was something wonderful. But it was a miserable, total, complete, and absolute fail. And I do that a couple of times every week. Yeah, but that's okay. And just as you said there, a no-fail protocol, I've got a few of these up my sleeves, and that's what the whole idea is about. The simplest one in the world is, that's fantastic. Tells me exactly what I need to know. And everybody in the world accepts that for some crazy reason. And of course, that depends on the person who's talking, and it depends on the person's rapport, because we've said this before, Lawrence, I can show people my skill, I can give them my skills, but I can't give them my talent. So they have to bring the talent along. But it's great because I get to meet people with wonderful talent, great rapport, and they're already halfway there.
So for those interested, it's on April 2nd and April 3rd, 6 to 10 p.m. Melbourne time. Now, I'm saying Melbourne time instead of Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time or Australian Eastern Standard Time because Daylight Savings Time stops that night. So it's just 6 to 10 p.m. Melbourne time. I'll put a link around this video so you can type in your city and find out what time it is in your part of the world. And if you're interested in a ticket, please just email me on Lawrence, it's LAWRENCE, @releasehypnosis.com.au, and I'll get back to you immediately with the details. Bob, thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome, Lawrence, and look forward to seeing some of you, all the Aussies, run about then. Take care.